Good evening. I am Kristen Perkowski, Executive Director of Student Achievement at Caledonia Community Schools, and I'm joined by Sarah DeVries, our Director of Finance. We are seeking feedback this evening on our elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. These are the ESSER 3 funds, not to be confused with ESSER 1 or 2, but the focus of tonight is to really explain to you what the funds can be used for, share a little bit of feedback from our survey that we received from the community in kind of the bucket areas that people are asking us to focus on with these funds, and then allowing you time through a Google Doc, or you can shoot me an email to give us feedback on the top priorities in your mind, what the priorities are, and to give us a little bit more detail about some of the things that were in the survey, some wonderings and considerations. That's really the focus of our meeting this evening. So with that, I want to just start off by sharing a little bit about what the funds could be used for. So our ESSER 3 federal funds are estimated to be approximately $5.4 million. These must be spent during the 22-23 and 23-24 school years. So there's very specific use for these funds. They are one-time funds. So after the 23-24 school year, we have no guarantee that there will be any additional funds following this 5.4 million. It must address, so meaning the funds, this 5.4 million must address the disproportionate impact of the pandemic. And it has to be specific to students that are at risk or disadvantaged in our district. Those are specifically defined by the Department of Education as low-income students, diverse racially and ethnic groups of students, English language learners, students with disabilities, homeless, migrant, and foster care students. So obviously we have a great deal of money to spend with a smaller proportion of our district. And the fact that this is one-time money, we want to be really thoughtful about it and use it in a way that is sustainable, that we can do beyond the 23-24 school year. So we sent a survey earlier. We received feedback on that survey, and it kind of came into four kind of focus areas for us. First of all, strengthening instructional core, which is, there's some things listed here, and I'll talk about those in just a second. Multi-tiered student supports and interventions. So for these two categories, this is really around instruction, the main core of instruction. So everything from offering high quality materials, research-based materials and equipment, to further professional development for our staff, to recruiting and retaining high quality leaders and teachers, to implementing new teacher induction programs that we're onboarding our new teachers from the field in really systematic ways. So expectations around what we want teachers to know and be able to do. Tutoring before and after school. And then the right side is really more about supports and interventions. So when students are struggling, and we know that that's the case due to just our situation with the pandemic, what are the things that people have said from the survey? Professional development. We've talked about special education, mental health, and wellness supports. Those are very strong indicators in the survey that this is a deep need in the community. The other two areas were around high quality career pathways. So everything from early childhood all the way to expanding dual enrollment opportunities at the high school, to just internal things with seminar at the middle and high school, increasing college and career readiness. And finally, our last category was around community. And it was not just expanding summer learning and enrichment opportunities, but also engaging families in that and thinking about creative ways that we can, close the gaps for students, not just during the school year, but beyond the school day. So from those four categories, what we're looking at doing is we're going to put a link in the chat window. And what we would like you to do is to select from your perspective what your top 3 priorities are. And I'll show you an example here, but we just asked that you put an X. So I will click it put it in the chat window. You can click on the link, and then you just pick a category, the top 3, and you put an X in the far right column. It's gray. Again, I'll show you that in just a second. And then the other thing we'd like you to do secondarily is all these things that we just shared are going to be listed on this document that's here, and we'll share this out. And we'd like you to put any comments, questions, wonderings, and considerations about the things that are listed there. So if there were things that I mentioned a few minutes ago that you're like, I really don't know what this means, or have you considered this, or one example was, hey, it'd be great to have more before and after school tutoring, but have you considered, like with our current bus shortage for bus drivers, how we would get students to and from school? So that would be an example of a wondering or consideration. So this is the document. And again, if we were doing this in person, we'd probably use little sticky notes on the wall, but for the purposes of us being virtually, the far right gray, kind of grayish green column is where all you would, if this was one of the categories, we'd ask you to put an X in the 3 categories that you deem to be most important. If you're the second person in, you can literally just put an X next to it. So that's what we're asking you to do. Vote for your top 3 of the entire list that we just read through. And then the second thing is to list any comments or questions in the bullet statement. So again, all of these things here on the far left are the things that I just mentioned. Steps to strengthening the core, intervention support for students, looking at high quality career pathways, and then community. So again, those focus areas came from the survey. We'd like to get more details and feedback, and we're doing that this month because we have a report due in February, or really a plan of how we're going to spend this money, what it's going to look like. So with that, I'm going to just take a moment to answer any questions about what we're asking you to do with the task at hand and giving us feedback on the areas that were deemed important from the survey. Any questions? Everybody's clear on the task, hopefully. Okay, so in the chat window, I'm going to put the link there. If you want to click on that, you should be able to have access to this, and you should have edit rights. So whatever device you're on, you should be able to just click on that link in the chat window and then be able to get in there, and I can see there's people getting in, and please feel free to look through and vote. And maybe you can't vote yet until you're asking your wondering and questions. And if we can answer those tonight, we will. But they might just be something for us to think about, ponderings that we need to think about if we were to focus on, additional mental health supports, for instance, as an example. So we're going to give everybody about 10 minutes or so to do this. And we're going to check back and see where people are. If we need more time, we can do that. So 6:07, so we're looking at 6:17 to kind of get back together, and then we'll share a little bit more. If you have more feedback, or if people are not able to make this evening, a way to give feedback and where you can find more information on all of our ESSER 1, 2, and 3 funding, and just our transparency reporting of all of them. So I'll give you 10 minutes to do that.
And Kristen, if there are wonderings or considerations, and should that be typed right in the box on this same chart?
Yes, thank you for that. Yep, just right in here. Okay. Have you considered blank? That's actually the wondering section, but yeah. I am wondering about this. I am wondering, or a consideration that you might think about if you roll out professional development for staff would be. And certainly, even if you want to just make a comment like, yeah, I think you're on the right track with this, or this feels like a higher priority over something else. Again, if you're just joining us, there is a link in the chat window that will link to this document. We're asking you to vote for your overall top 3 areas by placing an X in the far right column. These are all the areas that came up in the survey, community survey. And then if you have any questions or wonderings and any considerations we need to think about as we roll out and start planning for the spending of this ESSER money, which is approximately $5.4 million. And we have to spend that in a very specific way toward a very specific subgroup, which is, for those joining, disproportionate impact of the pandemic specific to at-risk disadvantaged students. So one-time money spent during the next 2 school years, and it has to be specific to the gaps with the pandemic due to at-risk or specific to at-risk students. And they are listed there as defined by the Department of Education. So at the end, if you are struggling a little bit with using this on a device other than a computer, feel free to, at the end, I will be providing my email address. You can feel free to email us feedback on any one of these areas. And we will make this also available on our transparency reporting page, the overview of the slide deck and information. So you can feel free to email any of that information if it's difficult to do on a phone. It's a little bit difficult to figure out a way to do this electronically versus the way that we've had it in person. Doesn't appear as though anyone is still typing or putting in any other comments. I think. So getting back to the transparency spending. So there's a document here on our website that highlights a little bit about, again, they've been used for different purposes. So there's a little bit of an overview here of what the ESSER 1 or the pandemic relief funds were used for. They had very specific purposes, what the grant money was used for during 1920 and the totals, and then the projected spending for ESSER 2 funds. And what we're talking about tonight is this in development. We don't have any plans finalized other than the feedback that we've received from the survey, and then gathering feedback from staff, community, and students during the month of January so that we can submit our plan for the use of those funds in February. So that is linked there. And again, if you were unable to this evening, you want to provide feedback in any one of those areas, feel free to, you have access to the document. We will make sure that it's on the website, this presentation, and you are more than welcome to provide feedback in that document when you have a chance to be on a computer, or you can feel free to email me at Perkowski, that's P as in Peter, ERKOWSKIK @calschools.org, and send us your feedback and information that will help us in formulating our plan. At this time, I'm here to answer questions, or any one of our team members that are on, if there are questions to answer about anything that's been in the survey, anything presented tonight, or any questions we can answer in general about ESSER funding.
I just wanted to make a note that when we put this on the website, it's actually going to be on the business services webpage, and all the links will be there.
Thank you, Sarah, for clarifying. All right, seeing no questions, again, feel free to email us. Feel free to send the link to other people if you have it and you'd like people to provide feedback to that document. There's more than a willingness for us, obviously, to seek feedback in all those areas. So the more that we know about what people put in the survey and what people's intentions were behind those responses, the better we will be in planning this and allocating the right amount of funds to address a need. So thank you for being here this evening and for your time and feedback. And we will look forward to being transparent with you soon about all of the details of the ESSER 3 spending plan, which will be coming out here toward, I don't know, Sarah's at the end of February, it's due? Sorry, I don't know the specific date. You're on mute.
Sorry, there is not an actual specific date, but because of the amount of funding and the limited time frame between this school year and next school year, and using the funds, we are looking to try to, get a plan in place to submit, but there's not an actual due date that I'm aware of.
Okay, so that's going to be in February though.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, with that, thank you for being here. Have a great evening. Appreciate your feedback.